Welcome back to Mind at the Table. I'm joined again by Greg Campbell, CEO of SpeakerPoint. In our last session, we unpacked DECK Decisionware, an intelligent platform built to turn data into meaningful action. Today, we're focusing on product born from that platform, Tag Safety, a solution that's reshaping how electrical safety is managed on the ground. From our conversations in the past, Greg, I understand how passionate you are about safety. I know you've mentioned a couple different things you've done by developing intelligent technology around safety over the years. And now you have a product that is targeting safety in the electrical industry, Tag Safety. Where did that come from?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Toby. Great question. So maybe a little bit of my background. Before I went to university, I was in a technical college here in Alberta called NAIT, and I took electronic engineering technology. And what was interesting about that is that they led into that program in the first year by talking lots about safety. And I think I'm the only one that paid attention, and it really sort of landed on me, all of those safety demonstrations and various things like that. And then right after I did my NAIT diploma, I went into the Canadian military and the Air Force, and their lead in was a big thing in safety. And they showed some pretty graphic engines, pretty graphic images of people not paying attention while they're around jet engines or even propeller engines. And, stuff can really happen in a big, bad, fast way when you're not paying attention and thinking about safety. So those lessons really landed. And then, when I was in university, I took a computer engineering degree in university. And one of the optional classes I had was an electrical engineering, high power course. And the professor there was really the only one in university who was talking about safety, and he sort of wanted to lay down the fact that this is a big scary problem if you're not paying attention. So he did some stuff around electrical safety that really landed on me as well. So all of those lessons I've really taken into my career. Not that I've done a lot with that over the years, but when we got into some of the contracts that we've done over the years inside of SpeakerPoint, safety was a big piece of it, and Tag Safety came along as a communication or a conversation with a customer in the heavy electrical manufacturing industry. And what we quickly realized when we're doing research there, that there's still to this day 5 to 10 incidents, electrical safety incidents or arc flash incidents, that happen on a daily basis. 2025, 5 to 10 electrical incidents that happen on a daily basis. Like, that just feels like it's way too much. And from that perspective, we thought that tag safety was really a socially appropriate thing to do. So, tag safety, we really tried to democratize safety. And what I mean by that is putting safety information in the hands of the frontline electricians who, need that data, need that safety data to be at their fingertips when they're standing in front of the equipment to keep them safe. And that's really where tag safety came from, is thinking about all the incidents and being able to reduce that in a big bad way.
Yeah, I didn't realize the frequency of incidents that occur still with this. You'd think it's something that seems relatively simple, to be honest. You're going to open up a big electrical piece of equipment or panel or switch gear. You know that there's a lot of voltage behind that, and there's a lot of damage that could be done to you, right? So you would think that people would be pretty self-aware and cautious, but I guess that's why there's mandated technology to try and make sure people have the right PPE on and protect themselves. So that was great. I think we kind of covered as well, the client scenario. You had a client, with a need, and you helped solve that problem for them. So maybe we'll jump into a little more of the experience in the field. Let's talk about user experience a little bit. When someone scans a tag safety label in the field, what do they actually see? And more importantly, what decisions can they make that they couldn't before?
Yeah, good question, Toby. So let's just step back and make sure that your viewers understand what a traditional arc flash label looks like. So when we're talking about arc flash, in this case, that arc ARC, that's an electrical arc that jumps from one place to another. And I'm sure everybody has seen, stuff like that on Tesla coils and, movies and TV shows where an electrical arc jumps. So what happens in high voltage situations on a plant floor, for example, they've got, these hundreds or thousands of volts that are coming into an electrical panel, and sometimes an electrician will need to make or break that connection, kind of like a breaker in your home panel. And when they do that, the energy, the electricity can jump from one plate to another, and that's called an arc flash. And that arc flash is able to harm people in a big way. So a traditional arc flash label is placed on the door of a piece of equipment that has high voltage behind it, and it gives a bunch of information about how much energy is behind that and what a electrician needs to be wearing in terms of personal protective equipment, PPE, to be able to work on that. So where that is good is that it does give information on that vinyl label attached to the equipment. It gives information in terms of how to keep somebody safe. But what we hear all the time from customers now that we're in this industry is that managers have, when the environment changes, when a maintenance activity changes, the line coming into a piece of equipment from, let's say, 480 volts to 600 volts, that arc flash label needs to change. And if it doesn't change quick enough, then a maintenance activity could happen where a electrician is off opening up a panel, and they're, based on the arc flash label, they're thinking that there's 480 volts behind there when it's actually 600 volts. And back to the 5 to 10 arc flash incidents that happen on a daily basis around North America, that's exactly where the problem lies, is that they could be opening up a panel that just doesn't reflect, or the arc flash label doesn't reflect the energy that's behind there. So, again, we hear about managers all the time that have these arc flash labels, these piles of arc flash labels on their desk, waiting for people to take them out to the manufacturing floor and replace what's out on the floor with these new labels. And they're just unable to come up with the time to be able to do that. And that's really where tag safety comes into play. So, the traditional information that's on a very limited real estate arc flash vinyl label comes at the very top of the click through. When they click through on the tag safety barcode that's there, they get that information, but there's just so much more now that is presented to them to keep them safe and to keep them aware of what's going on behind that case of the electrical panel. So it just increases their visibility, it increases their ability to see what's going on and keep themselves safe. That makes
Yeah, I
sense.
can see how that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Go ahead,
Okay.
Toby.
So I can see how it changes workflows for the frontline crews, dealing with these high risk tasks. What kind of updates or contextual data can the system provide that static tag, or that could provide that a static tag or a binder never would have been able to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the problem is, in a traditional arc flash tag, the engineer of record, when they make a change and an electrician goes out and makes that change on the shop floor, the engineer of record has to issue a new arc flash tag. And again, a manager will have that pile of arc flash tags and take that out. Now, with our system, what an engineer of record is able to do is make the change, and as soon as the change is executed on the shop floor, they're able to log into the system and then into the arc flash system called Tag Safety that we have. and make the safety changes, the data changes directly inside of the application. So now, as soon as they press save, two things happen. One is that information gets pushed out to the system, so the next person clicking through on that barcode, they're able to see the accurate, up-to-date information associated with that piece of equipment. And two, from an audit log perspective, all of that information, all of the changes that happen are trapped. So if there ever is an incident now, the engineers of record are able to say, look, here's the audit log associated with everything that I've done. Everything was up to date and safe. This isn't a problem from a documentation perspective. Perhaps there's faulty switchgear or whatever the incident might happen when the investigation occurs.
Interesting. So, I mean, we are obviously protecting employees and contractors that might be working in the plant better, but at the same time, we're also making the process of audits clearer and protecting the company from liability and from employee danger, right? So that's amazing. Can you? We talked last time a little bit about DECK Decisionware, and this is a product that's been built on DECK Decisionware. So it's not just a QR code that anyone can slap on and away you go. You got to have a smart operating system behind it. So this, we don't consider this just a smart label, but part of a dynamic feedback loop inside of DECK. What does that integration unlock for companies managing compliance and operational risk?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So what's interesting about DECK in the past, we've done a lot of work in the healthcare industry, for example, where it's very regulated and audit logs are very much a thing that must be maintained. So immutable data based on changes or based on things that are happening. Being able to use, that audit log module directly inside of tag safety and ensuring the recording of everything that's happening on site as these, all of these plants that were built in the 70s are now going through all of these massive upgrades and stuff like that. And as those upgrades happen, that's exactly where this edge case and all of these incidents occur. When an edge case happen or when an upgrade happens. So being able to ensure that we're trapping all of that and using the foundational building blocks inside of DECK to come up with a product that's needed in that safety industry is exactly what this thing is all about, what tag safety is all about.
Amazing. Can you maybe now just walk us through how that data moves from scan to analysis to actionable insights?
Yeah, good question. So the data from one perspective moves from an engineer of record, issuing a maintenance order or a change order that is taking place out in a plant and being able to push that information into the tag safety system, which allows it to push out to the shop floor and allow anybody clicking into that barcode when they are in front of a piece of equipment. It facilitates all of that. But I think you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about employees and contractors. This is again, when we're talking about democratizing safety, we're not just talking about employees having some special app that they have to log into to the company or corporate servers. What happens a lot in the industrial industry is that contractors are often on site. So this application is specifically set up such that a contractor can click on that barcode as well and see the information that they need to keep themselves safe. So no matter if somebody is a company person, they can be safe, but also somebody on contract from the union hall or just a general contractor who's on site is able to use this information as well to ensure that they're going home for dinner on a nightly basis, right? That's what's important to everybody these days on site.
Agreed. Yeah. So from a safety perspective, very clear, and compliance, very clear how this is an effective tool, valuable tool. And I could see just from that, people would want to utilize it because it's an improvement in what is currently available. And potential has insurance reductions and other things attached to it, as well as incidents drop, and so many different ways we can go to discuss from that perspective. But I'd like to pivot a little bit. Does this also enable and help managers to spot patterns or prevent incidents before they happen?
Yeah, Toby, that's a really great question too. So you ask all these great questions. So what's interesting about tag safety, if you think about before tag safety with a traditional arc flash label, nobody really understands if, let's say, a junior electrician who's on site, when they get issued a work order to go work on that particular Wednesday morning, nobody knows if they've actually looked at the arc flash label and are able to understand even what the PPE is associated with that. So now enter tag safety. What we're able to do is actually check for a click-through on a piece of equipment that has been issued a work order, and perhaps actually later this afternoon, when that work order is complete and handed back into the management team, or the EEJHA, the employee exposure job hazard assessment that typically gets filled out prior to a piece of maintenance work being done. When that electronically comes into tag safety, we're able to see if with that EEJHA or the work order, if somebody actually clicked through. So, being able to see that maybe a junior didn't click through on that, there might be a correctional, not a correctional, but somebody can urge them, look, you got to make sure that you're checking in on the safety side of things and looking at the arc flash label to ensure that you're protected, and again, going home for dinner that night, right? So it's just a way to check on everybody's safety from a managerial perspective.
Yeah, I could really see how this information would provide valuable data, so that just whether it's a new employee coming on board, or like we discussed in these plants, there's often contractors for shutdowns and different things that are going on, that always go through a safety protocol before they're allowed to work within that plant. And so this could actually change the upfront training, in that we're noticing that people aren't clicking through, they aren't accessing this information. By missing this information, it's opening us up to this liability, it's opening them up to this danger. So let's change our training so they realize they need to click through, and that we're actually tracking that they're clicking through, so we'll know if they don't. So that can really help change the actions that are being taken in the plant, and making sure that what the company believes is happening is actually happening, and we are protecting people. Now I'm gonna pivot on you a little bit again, and this is more where I live as a finance guy, and while all of the safety protocols and protecting people going home for dinner absolutely is the core focus and the most important piece, but what companies that are clients of Hyperion will want to know is, where's the ROI? What measurable value have adopters seen so far?
Yeah, Toby, I knew you were going to ask me that question, and it's such a difficult question to answer in terms of a piece of software, a piece of technology that's really addressing a safety issue. How do you put a value on an injury, especially a permanent injury like an arc flash burn, or even a death? How do you put a value on that to calculate ROI? And it's been such a tough question, and we've had this time over time when customers are new to this and they start asking about ROI. When you compare it directly to, again, that injury frequency, it's difficult to answer. Is there a real answer? I'm not sure. But if you think about ROI in terms of being able to do your job quicker and allow, for example, the engineers of record and the managers whose job it is to previously get the arc flash labels from their desk out to the actual pieces of equipment, it's easy to calculate. So, what one of our customers have calculated is that even just an arc flash label change, it costs about $135 per arc flash label that needs to be reissued and walked out into the plant and to be replaced. So, being able to have an engineer of record do that automatically, that greatly reduces the cost, especially when a particular big maintenance activity is going to touch 20 or 30 labels. Suddenly it becomes incredibly easy to calculate an ROI. Now, what's interesting as well is that we're working with partners that are typically electrical engineering companies that do a lot of work for these big companies. And one of those partners of ours is calculating the replacement of an arc flash label up between $900 and $1,000. And, we love that number just because it makes way more sense in terms of an actual ROI calculation. It's easier to, prove out the ROI value of what we're doing inside of tag safety. Not sure, which value is right, but that gradient, even down at $135 to, let's say, $900, there's a lot of play in there, and ROI wise, we're able to really make this thing pay for itself very, very quickly.
Yeah, great answer, Greg. Thanks for clarifying there. I mean, not to steal other advertising, but when you start talking about protecting lives and reducing accident incidents and lives lost, I mean, really, it's a priceless tool from that perspective. There is no ROI you could calculate for it. What I like to talk about a little bit is the trifecta of benefits that one SaaS solution can provide a business. There's the compliance, you're improving compliance, you're improving safety, and there's a very direct ROI comparable at the same time. So you're reducing cost or you're improving profitability with this solution. So I think that's kind of where I was focusing on is, hey, we've covered that this is going to be a more, you're going to be more compliant, you're going to be protecting your employees, you're going to be reducing your liability. We're also giving you an opportunity here to actually have a positive impact on ROI. So while a lot of these things, as you layer them on, typically add cost, tag safety is a product that's going to improve safety, improve your compliance, and also reduce costs. So it's a trifecta of benefits, and it's very difficult to find. I can't often say, oh, there's a trifecta of benefits when I'm talking about a SaaS solution. So in our discussions, that's what really popped out and hit me, and so I wanted to bring it up and focus on it a little bit. So maybe now we'll just talk about maybe some of the audit processes, incident reports, and training programs. How does it change those functions?
Yeah, great question. So right now we're concentrating on large plants that have multiple thousands of these arc flash labels deployed in their infrastructure. But these arc flash labels are used in any commercial building, and whether that is a multifamily dwelling or the corner store with a 7-Eleven that is near your home kind of thing, there's one or two or a handful of these things, these arc flash labels that are deployed. So you ask about incidents associated with that can trigger investigations, and you think of a fire in any of those commercial buildings, the first thing that happens with incident investigators is they have a look at those arc flash labels. And even though the electrical system might not be the cause of the fire, in that particular case, they start issuing tickets if the arc flash information isn't up to date. So allowing for a engineering company that you hire once every 5 years to do an arc flash study to update that data, ensure that the arc flash label, in this case, the digital data behind the barcode in the tag safety arc flash labels is up to date, keeps you compliant and out of touch with those incident investigators. And again, whether that's an incident investigator or somebody who's doing a spot investigation just because they show up on site or whatever, can keep you out of touch in a big way.
Greg, from our previous discussions, I know we talked about an industry arc flash requirement every 5 years. Can you tell us how tag safety impacts that required study?
Yeah, for sure. That's a really important question. So, in two different ways, it's impacted. One is the cost of the arc flash study for actually deploying or having a set of people go out onto the shop floor and deploy the arc flash labels. That's now completely alleviated as the company, the engineering company that's doing the arc flash study, is able to push that directly through the tool and out to the labels automatically now that it's all digitized. And then the other side of it is that the engineering company is always looking for a starting point that's as close to real world time now as possible. So with tag safety, allowing the engineer of record on site over that 5-year period to ensure that all of that information is up to date, the engineering company doing the study is able to start fresh from data that should be already deployed and not have to go and do so much engineering work to catch up, if you will, on all of that. So it's a much tighter turnaround, and the cost should go down a little bit associated with that R flash study.
So for a number of guys like me, the important part of all of what you just said is less time required to go out and fix things during those arc flash studies because everything's up to date already. So there's less compliance issues that they have to deal with during the study. And secondly, less, you will know, employees going out to stick new arc flash tags on to update equipment because that's all done through the system now and they can do it from their laptops, their desktops. That's amazing. So do you see applications for tag safety or similar tech in other industries where compliance and decision making are critical?
Yeah, that's a really important question. I think the answer is yes. We're on our roadmap specifically. We are seeing a couple of product avenues that sort of tack in a bit of a different direction than what we're doing with tag safety. But along that same lines, they're using the same type of technology, QR barcodes, to be able to keep things up to date and potentially reduce turnaround costs and also called shutdown costs in the oil and gas industry. And then, across the board, we do a bunch of work in healthcare and other industries as well. So from that perspective, there's all kinds of compliance problems out there that having a physical barcode on something and the ability for people to check very, very quickly if something is up to date is really important. So yeah, all kinds of things for sure.
Yeah, and I love, everybody these days is aware of barcode and QR code technology, but really it's having the platform behind that technology to mine the data and make the systems work. Otherwise, it's not that valuable to you. So again, Greg, as always, I really appreciate the time you give me. I learned so much. It's always enlightening, and it's such a pleasure to chat with you.
Toby, the pleasure is mine. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me about this.
Tag safety isn't just smarter, it's transformational. In high-risk industries, real-time data means faster decisions, safer outcomes, and stronger controls. If your safety system is stuck in the past, maybe it's time to scan forward. Explore how tag safety and DECK Decisionware can help you lead with intelligence and act with confidence. Reach out and let's have a chat.